In order to understand the peculiar notation of the Baroque guitar, we have to talk first about the also peculiar writing of the Renaissance vihuela and lute. In 16th century, when the first real music for string instruments appears, there was not a form of notation for instrumental music. The notation that was commonly used, called canto de órgano in Spanish, was used only to write polyphonic vocal music, and each voice was written separately, so that it was not possible to have an idea of how a piece of music could sound until such piece was sung by several persons. There are a few examples of instrumental music from 15th century written in a system similar to canto de órgano, like this example from Codex Faenza. In 16th century, musicians had to invent several systems of instrumental notation called tablature. Each one of these systems could only be read in the specific instrument they were intended to. These systems were devised for the use of persons who were not professional musicians, and for this reason, the common musical notes were not used. Instead, the use of letters, numbers, of some other kind of symbols, and thus one tablature for viol could only be read on a viol, a tablature for lute could only be read on a lute, and so on. There was only one form of tablature in Spain that supposedly could be read in several different instruments, on a keyboard, just like a harpsichord, or in a harp, or in a vihuela. But I think this was not completely true. I think it was just a business strategy. They just wanted to sell. There were 3 different systems of lute tablature, according to their country of origin: the German tablature, the French tablature, and the Italian tablature. Each one of these systems was designed to indicate which strings had to be plucked and which frets had to be used. The German tablature, which only looks very complicated, had a different symbol for each one of the positions of each string in the fretboard. So, to indicate plucking the first string in the first fret, there was one specific symbol, as can be seen, and for the second fret in the same string, another different symbol. The rows of symbols in the tablature indicate each one of the different voices of a composition for the lute. This tablature was used only in Germany and only in the 16th century. The French tablature is much easier to read. Here, the strings of the lute are indicated by the lines of the hexagram. The first string is the top line, and the letters indicate the frets. A letter A indicates open string, which means not pressing any fret. A letter B means pressing on the first fret, and a letter C on the second fret, etc. This system was used in many European countries, not only in France. Later, in the 17th century, it was used also by many Baroque. The Italian tablature is even easier to understand. In this system, the lines of the hexagram also represent the strings, but in this case, the first string is the bottom line, and the numbers show the different frets that must be pressed. So, quite simply, a 0 represents the open string, a number 1 is the first fret, and a 2 the second fret. This tablature was used in Italy, in Spain and Spanish America, for the lute and for both the vihuela and the Baroque guitar.